Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. This week, we're going to talk about how do you know if an injury is serious or if it's something you can watch for a little while. And we'll talk about how do you know, should you go get checked out? How long are they going to be out? These are questions I asked on Instagram a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago. And I think these are great questions. So let's tune in and let's get started. Welcome to the Cheer Athlete Podcast, where we bring coaches, parents, and athletes expert tips and advice to help keep cheerleaders healthy, strong, and at the top of their game. Now let's go. So how do you know if an injury is serious? The first is if there's ever a question, go get checked out. If you're not sure, if something's going on, go get checked out. It's better to be safe than sorry. But let's go back. We'll talk a little bit about the catastrophic injuries versus, is it a strain? Can they just walk it off? If you haven't listened to the catastrophic injuries, that's episode 143. So go check that out. There's lots of information in there as far as what qualifies as a catastrophic injury. Catastrophic isn't always catastrophic. A serious injury is something that needs medical attention and needs to be addressed further. Maybe they need physical therapy. Maybe if there's a broken bone, they need to be immobilized for a while. Or even an ankle sprain is something that should have medical attention. So those can be serious injuries, and they're not catastrophic, because catastrophic is something that's going to put you out for a while, like a neck injury and a head injury, similar to a concussion. And not all concussions are catastrophic, but they are very serious. And I think it's really important that we pay attention to concussions and to concussive symptoms. So again, just because something is serious doesn't mean it's catastrophic. But let's talk about, how do you know that you should actually go get checked out and have your athlete checked out? So very first thing, if they lose consciousness, they go to the emergency room. If they can't feel anything in their limbs and they can't move their limbs, don't try and move them. But that would be something very serious that needs to automatically go call 911 and get them to the emergency room. If they're having trouble, shortness of breath and having trouble breathing, get them to the emergency room and call 911. Yeah, you may have to pay an ambulance fee, but wouldn't you rather have your kid be under supervision in an ambulance and making sure that they are stable and have the equipment to manage if something bad is happening, if they're short of breath? One year when I was coaching, one of my flyers fell and came down and couldn't weight bear on her leg. So that is another serious injury, that she didn't lose consciousness, she didn't hit her head, she wasn't short of breath, but she was in a lot of pain. And we were practicing at the time, we weren't close to the athletic training facility. Now, I'm a physical therapist, and yes, I can manage injuries, and that's what I do in my job. But I don't love acute injuries because I don't assess on the spot. I see them after they've been assessed. So if the trainers had been on site, I would have had the trainers come down. But she was in so much pain, we called 911 and went by ambulance to the hospital to get her checked out. Now, I could have taken her in my car. We could have had the girls hop her into the car and taken her there. This was college, so mom wasn't around, and I wasn't going to have another athlete bring her. But it was safer for her to go by ambulance, and they could put her on, they could strap in her leg. She did end up having a fracture in her leg, and they could strap it so it wasn't moving. They could immobilize it, and she was better off for that because we took the appropriate precautions to get her there. If they can't, so someone that breaks a leg, if it's high up, if it's at their knee, this was a little higher, it was a tibial plateau fracture. So if it's at the knee, they can probably move their foot. They don't like it, but they can move their foot, okay? But maybe don't want to, when they go to stand up, they can't put that weight through it. Then you know that something's not right. If they can't move their foot, they're awake, they have a lot of pain in their foot and they can't move it because it's hurting, that's likely a sign that something's going on also. And that could be an ankle fracture. A sprained ankle, when you roll your ankle, it can present and feel a lot like a fracture. But if they can stand on it, they can walk a few, maybe it's painful, but it's not. So bone pain is splintering pain. And I'm going to talk about my own clavicle fractures in a minute, but like that broken bone pain is, it's really, it's intense. It's splintering pain. An ankle sprain, it can be really intense. It's like you ripped the ligament off the bone. Hopefully it's just a mild sprain if it's the first one. They may not have to go, if they can stand and they can walk on it and it eases, but it's still painful. It's not something you have to call 911 for and get them there immediately. But if it's significantly swollen and uncontrollable pain, it's better to get them there. Make sure that there isn't a fracture, because a lot of times ankle sprains can lead to fractures, and get it immobilized as soon as possible. Once they rule that out, then, so for ankle sprains, they'll either put you in a boot and let it rest for a couple weeks, and then you have to get your mobility back. It's a process, and it's definitely serious. Ankle sprains can, an acute ankle sprain that is the first one can get better pretty quickly. But it's serious that you should actually go to physical therapy. Make sure the range of motion is back. Make sure you get the strength back. So you see the difference between really serious, you have to go to the emergency room by ambulance, versus maybe we can wait to see the orthopedic. They can walk on it. It's hurting, but they're limping, but it's not, they're able to bear weight. And so use your best judgment in that. And again, when in doubt, take them to the ER. The suspected ankle sprain that they can move their toes, but they don't like to do it, those you could drive them by car. Upper body, same. So I had 3 clavicle fractures as a youth. Once in first grade, I was doing a cartwheel and the grass was a little wet and I slipped and it went out from underneath me. That, well, all 3 were very traumatic. The second one, I was doing a head spring in gym class and I got stuck and that snapped. And again, bone pain, it's just splintering. And then the third one, I was doing a front walkover and my arm collapsed because I had not built up strength and recovered from it. So every 3 years, so 6, 9, and 12 I was. So the very first one was the worst and the most traumatic, and the one that sticks in my head, because it was a green stick fracture. So that just kind of means the bone bends, and when you haven't, it didn't go through my growth plate. You can't really see it on this video, but it was right in the center of the bone, the very common place for a collarbone fracture, clavicle fracture. And it just really hurt and I was crying. And so they called the nurse to come to call my parents to come pick me up. My mom came and picked me up, and God love her, she's, stop crying, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have a little strain, like calm down, you're gonna be fine. We get into the ER, we go through the x-ray process. They tell her I have a fracture and she felt horrible. And I was like, see, I told you, as we do as daughters. But the point being, like, she never questioned me again. If I, like, your kids know it's bad and I can't move and it's not getting better, then take them to the emergency room. Try not to tell them that it's nothing, because even if it is a mild sprain or they just pulled up, they strained a muscle or it's just a tweak and they're better the next day, it's still in that moment pretty painful for them. And you might say, okay, I think it's a muscle tweak and we're going to wait a little bit. The key is don't belittle where their pain is. If they can't walk on it, they need to go and see someone. And if they can't move their arm, then they need to go see someone. So if they might not have full motion, but if they can't move their arm at all and they're really protecting it and guarding it, there likely is something going on. They need to get that checked out. Those are like, so broken bones are the crucial ones that they need to definitely go get checked, that are not catastrophic. And an ACL injury. So an ACL, if they are, you can walk on your leg after an ACL injury, but it feels like it's doing this, it's sliding back and forth, and it just feels icky. Then you may hyperextend a lot. If you have a meniscal injury, it may feel like it's locking and catching. This doesn't mean that you necessarily have to emergently go to the ER, but if they're limping and they're not, over the course of a couple of days, it's not gradually getting better, and they're feeling like it's slipping and getting out of, then they should go get checked out and go see an orthopedic doctor and find out if something's going on. Ortho, orthopedics, physical therapy, athletic trainers, we can assess for an ACL injury without having an MRI, but we have MRIs these days, so that's generally the gold standard. The thing you want to question, the biggest thing you want to emergency get is if something's fractured. And if you're not sure, you need to get there. Everything else is not, it's not that it's not serious, because an ACL, especially for youth, is going to require surgery. A sprain is going to require physical therapy, whether it's their wrist or their ankle. But a fracture needs to be immobilized and needs to let it heal. You can participate if there's a sprain, and you could participate with an ACL injury, but we all see what happened with Lindsay. So it doesn't mean you can't participate, but maybe you're not doing the tumbling and the jumping, but until you have your surgery. So if you're in a school, you could still cheer sidelines, just don't jump and tumble. If you're in competition cheer, you're probably going to be out. So, when you need to go get seen, when in doubt, take them to get seen. How long does it take to recover, and how long does it take them to get back? It depends on the injury. A straight up fracture, so my collarbone fracture, clavicle fracture, the first time took about 4 weeks that I had to be in my little brace and splinted and immobilized. And for kids at 6 years old, they're going to heal pretty quickly. And I wasn't doing cheerleading at that time, and I wasn't doing gymnastics. So I didn't get in and do wrestling in gym class, but I was healed and I was out of my brace. So if somebody has a fracture, the average healing time is 6 to 8 weeks that they're going to be immobilized. Now they might get out of, so they broke their lower leg and it's not through a growth plate, and it's a non-weight bearing bone like the fibula, the outer part of the leg. They might be able to come out of a boot and stop being immobilized relatively quickly. And then they have to build strength from there. At a minimum, you're going to look at 8 weeks for them to be back into doing some jumping and landing. That 8-week time frame just allows the bone to heal. An ACL injury is going to take them a good year. Yes, they can start doing sport specific stuff at 9 months. Yes, there are athletes that have gone back. Most of them end up with a second ACL injury. So I urge you to plan a year. Anybody that has surgery that comes in to see me, so we're not talking population on total knees and total joint and total hips, but I see a lot of that in the clinic. And they're like, oh, the doctor said I'd be fine in 3 months. You're going to feel a whole lot better at 3 months, and you don't have to really pay attention to your precautions at 3 months. But it's not means that you're going to be fine. You still have to do the work on getting your motion back. You have to work on building the strength. You have to, if it's a younger total joint, they're going to work on jumping, and they're going to work on building to get back into whatever sport they're going to play. I hope that nobody that's listening to this kid has to have a total joint replacement, but it's the same process. So if they're having surgery, it's going to take a solid year for them to be better and be able to get back into full activity. And again, it all depends on the injury. So if somebody has a tib-fib fracture or a lower leg fracture that requires surgery, that's going to take a lot longer and likely closer to that year than someone that just has a fibular fracture or just has a tibial fracture that has to be immobilized and doesn't need surgery. So there's a lot of variables, and I don't want you to be tied to, oh, healing time is this, because healing time for tissue is 6 to 8 weeks. But back to sport time is when can they move well? Do they have the ability to touch their toes? Can they squat? Can they kneel? Can they stand up from the ground? Can they then jump? And so we look at what is their range of motion, what is their strength, what is their stability, what is their mobility, and you put all those pieces together and you build on that. Ankle sprains can get back pretty quickly. They could be back, it's a really small grade 1 sprain. They could be back in participating at 2 weeks, but they might need to be braced. If it's a more severe ankle sprain and there's a lot of swelling and it's a repetitive one that's happened over and over, they might need to sit out a little longer, let that tissue heal, get that range of motion back. It's really important that we get our range of motion back. And this leads me into like management a little bit. And because you've heard me talk about flexibility and stretching, and I see all the time like that people want to do more stretching to help improve skills, and I get it, but the flexibility is not the issue. And most cases for non-injured clients. It's usually more a mobility, that they don't have the control, they can't take their joint through full motion, but their flexibility is pretty good, or they don't have the strength. And with cheerleaders, mostly I find it's a strength issue. Somebody has a broken ankle, and let's say just the lower part, the outside part of the ankle, that's the lateral malleolus, part of the fibula, it's the outside part of the leg. Common fracture, especially in youth. They're going to be immobilized for that 6 weeks. And then because their foot hasn't moved, it stiffens up. And so then you got to work on some joint mobility and getting that joint to move a little bit better. But that can involve some stretching, but doing things like step ups and creating more weight bearing through it and controlled motion. And that goes across the board with any injury. I wish I had PT when I was a kid, because it just wasn't popular. I don't know, I didn't learn about it until I was in high school. Had they worked on my mobility, like I still feel like it's limited in the front of my shoulder. And that would have helped to really train and get me some strength so that I didn't have a repeat fracture 3 years later. Because nobody, that stays with you. The last time I fractured my collarbone, the doctor's like, you can go to prom and you can't wear a strapless dress. I didn't like them anyways. I didn't look good in them, but that sits when you're 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, like that stays in your head and it stays with you for life. So we don't want repeat fractures. We don't want repeat sprains. We want to get the joints moving. That doesn't just involve stretching. It also involves strengthening and creating mobility and getting things to move better. And everybody wants a quick fix, but I'm sorry to tell you, there's no quick fix. It takes work. It takes time. And they'll get there, and they don't have to have repeat injuries. You heard me tell my ACL story. It's very common for people to re-tear their ACL or to tear their opposite ACL, especially high school girls, because they don't have the strength, they don't have the control. So taking the time to build, once you've had one injury, let's make that the last and not have any more, so that you build strength. I promise, if they take their time and get better, cheer's going to be there on the other end. They're going to feel that much safer. They're going to have less risk of missing time again. And they'll probably be better in all of their skills because of what they're doing. So for as much as it stinks to sit out, and if you've paid for All-Star and you're losing that money, I get it. It sucks to have an injury that has you out for the season. But if you can come better, and if you're better in the long run, isn't that worth it? So if it's serious, how do you know if it's serious? They can't walk on it. If they've hit their head and they're lost consciousness, if they're having trouble breathing, if they're having a back spasm, so that back spasms are pretty common. If a stunt came down on a base and the stunt had come down, it gave a compression load and they hyperextended. Certainly if they can't move their limbs or they have loss of sensation, 911 them there. If that stunt came down, they can move okay, they can walk, there's no numbness and tingling, then you still might want to take them to the emergency room just to make sure that there's no fracture in the spine. It's not super common, but it can happen, especially if somebody has some weakness through the back to begin with. If you are unsure, if you take them home, they're like, oh, my back hurts, they go to bed in the morning, or they go to bed and in the morning, they're like, yeah, it's still a little sore, but maybe a little bit better. They probably don't have to go. Give it a couple of days. If they still wake up after resting and do some easy movement and it's getting worse, then they should go get checked. How long will they be out for? It depends on the injury. It depends on what strength state and mobility strength state they're in prior to the injury. An ACL that's going in for surgery that has perfect range of motion and no swelling in the knee is going to do much better than someone that has a lot of swelling in the knee and doesn't have full range of motion. It's just the way it is. We got to get that motion back and get things moving. It depends on where your athlete is at prior to. And then things build from there. And so this is why I'm so passionate about, one, teaching you about injuries. I think that's really important. But two, learning that like mobility and strength exercises are going to reduce more injuries than straight up stretching and flexibility. And some of it's just words, right? That's what we think. Okay, I want more flexibility. Instead, say, what exercises can I learn that's going to help me to move better? It's going to help better motion, because that means you're getting control and you're getting the joint to move, not just the muscles, which is, we need those muscles to have that contraction, not just to be able to go through and have a stretch. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have questions. In my injury prevention toolkit for parents, I have a whole other video that talks about this as well. And there's a lot of other information in there that can help you to navigate that as well. So that link will be in the bio below, or in the description below. And I look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. That Ask the PT is in the show notes as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions. You just gotta reach out and ask. If you don't want to do the form, that's okay. You can message me on Instagram. That's totally fine. And I'll do a podcast, or we can have a conversation. Make it a good week. If you're in the Northeast here, we're going to make it through the snow. And if you're in Rhode Island and you're listening to this, 3 feet, oh my goodness. We had 1.5 feet where I live here in Massachusetts, and that's enough. I don't mind snow generally, but I'm ready. It can go away. I'm ready for some spring and some sunshine. And I'm sure you are too. And if you're in the South and enjoying it, I bless you for that. And I know you've got different weather seasons that come and go. But anyways, make it a great week. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe out. Take life one step at a time. You can do anything you put your mind to. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you are responsible for your own vibes. So go get the day.